Mr. President, as you know, and many do, 16 years ago I introduced a bill called the DREAM Act. And the DREAM Act was written to cover young people brought to the United States by their parents who have grown up in this country but do not have legal status. They are undocumented. Some of them don't learn that until they're in high school or later. They think they're Americans. They went to school with a lot of American kids. They pledge allegiance to that flag. They sing our national anthem. They truly believe they were Americans and didn't learn until later in life that, in fact, they overstayed a visa. Perhaps their parents overstayed a visa is probably a better description, and that has affected their legal situation. So I introduced this bill, simple bill, which said if you have a child in America caught up in that circumstance, we will give them a chance to get legal. They didn't make the decision to come here in the first place, but they ought to have a chance to become legal in America and to become citizens. That's what the DREAM Act said. And we set up certain standards. How do you become legal in America? Well, first, if you have a serious criminal record, goodbye. We don't want you, we don't need you. Second, if you're not going to finish school and drop out, sorry, there's no future for you in this country, or a limited future. And third, would you consider serving in our U.S. military as a way of proving that you want to be part of America's future? So we set that up in the DREAM Act, and time passed, and we didn't pass the bill. One of my colleagues in the Senate went on to be elected President of the United States, Barack Obama, and I reached out to him and said, Mr. President, can you figure out a way to protect these young people who are subject to deportation through no fault of their own? And he did. He came up with an executive order called the DACA program, and under the DACA program, young people like those I described came forward, paid a $500 filing fee, and then went through a criminal background check to make sure they had no problems, submitted their information, and each of them was given a 2-year renewable protection plan so they could live in America, not be deported, be able to legally work. Well, what happened to those people? 780,000 of them showed up, paid the fee, and got the protection under the DACA program. Then came a presidential campaign, the last one, where Donald Trump, as candidate for president, said, I'm going to get rid of this DACA program. I think it's wrong. It never should have been done by executive order. He said that and then was elected and set out to do it. Last September 5th, he did just that. Announced by the Attorney General of the United States, they said that by March 5th of 2018, the program would end. So what it means is that today and every day, more and more of these protected young people fall out of protection. About 120 a day. So far, 10,000 of them. 10,000 of them who were protected by DACA now can be deported. And the numbers will continue to grow until March 5th, when the president said the program should end, when 1,000 young people a day in America will lose DACA protection, be subject to deportation, and cannot legally work. President Trump said to us when he eliminated the DACA program September 5th, I challenge Congress. Do what you're supposed to do. Pass a law to take care of this. Well, I accepted that challenge, and I joined with Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican of South Carolina. We introduced the DREAM Act. We're ready to pass the DREAM Act. I think there are votes on the floor to pass the DREAM Act. Some of my Republican friends have said to me, we support it, but we want a show of good faith on your part that you will strengthen our border operations to reduce others from coming into this country. And I said, sign me up. As a Democrat, I'll join with you as a Republican to fund things that are sensible, realistic, and effective to take our tax dollars and make our border safer. I accept that. So now we're in a position where the president's challenge has really come to the spot where we have to do something. We're going to leave here by December 22nd to go home and enjoy the holidays. If we don't fix this problem before we leave, imagine what that means to these 780,000 young people. They don't know what their future is going to hold. Well, who are they? 20,000 of them teach in schools, grade schools and middle schools and high schools across the United States. 20,000 of these DACA-protected young people. When they lose their right to legally work in America, they are finished as teachers. Finished. Out the door. 20,000 teachers could be lost. In addition, there are students who are in a pretty tricky situation. About 30 of them go to Loyola Medical School in Chicago. They won the competition to be accepted at that medical school because Loyola, unlike other medical schools, said, we will open competition to DACA-eligible people. Some of them are the most brilliant kids in America who never dreamed, being undocumented, they could make it to medical school. They have. They're doing well, but there's a problem. You can't finish medical school and move on to where you want to be unless you complete a residency after medical school. The residency is actually a job involving a lot of hours in hospitals, learning to be a doctor. All doctors go through it, and these medical students would go through it as well, except if they lose DACA protection, they cannot legally work, therefore they cannot even apply to be residents and complete their medical education. Our failure to act, our delay in acting, jeopardizes their medical education. Do we have a surplus of doctors in the United States? No. The AMA tells us just the opposite. And across Illinois, I can point to communities downstate and neighborhoods in Chicago area desperately in need of doctors. Can we waste a medical student at Loyola Medical School because the Senate is just too darn busy to take it up? Mr. President, does it look to you like the Senate is too busy to take up an issue like this? The fact of the matter is we've done precious little this year, and we have plenty of time. And it's also a reality that a lot of people are watching carefully to see if we do our job. I started a long time ago coming to the floor of the Senate telling the story of these dreamers, the story of these people who are protected by DACA. I can give the greatest speech in the world, people will yawn, but when I tell them the story of these lives and these people, it changes the conversation. They come to understand who they are and why this is critically important. Today is kind of a milestone. This is the 100th story that I've told on the floor of the United States Senate, and they're all in the congressional record for those who want to go off and take a look at it. It's a story of another one of these dreamers. His story is particularly compelling. This is his photo. His name is Kee-Min Cho. Kee-Min Cho was 7 years old when his family brought him from Seoul, South Korea, to the United States. He grew up in New Jersey. From a young age, he was quite a good student and active in his community. In high school, he took multiple advanced placement courses. He was vice president of the National Honor Society and president of his class. Here's a picture of him at his high school graduation. In high school, Kee-Min was a member of the Math and Science Academy and a member of the varsity track and field team. He was a volunteer at his church, and he taught summer school. At the same time, he was working over 40 hours a week. You see, these kids, these young people, dreamers, don't get federal government loans or Pell Grants, so they have to work extra time to get the money to go to school. He worked 40 hours a week in a restaurant to help support his family and pay for his education. Now he's a student at Temple University's Fox School of Business. He's studying accounting in the honors program. He continues to work 2 restaurant jobs a week for nearly 40 hours to help his family. But last year, something else happened that was significant in his life. Kee-Min Cho, an undocumented student in America, was allowed to enlist in the United States Army. The program he enlisted in is called Military Accessions Vital to the National Interest Program. It's known by the acronym MAVNI. This program allows immigrants like Kee-Min with special skills, quote, vital to the national interest, close quote, to enlist in our armed forces. More than 900 DACA recipients, just like Kee-Min, with these skills have joined the military. They took the oath. They said that they were willing to die for this country and serve in our military. Some Trump administration officials have claimed that DACA recipients are taking jobs away from Americans, but Kee-Min and hundreds of others have vital skills that our military just couldn't find in other places. Kia Min, with many other dreamers, is now waiting to ship out to basic training. He continues his undergraduate studies, working full-time, waiting for a chance to serve the United States of America, willing to risk his life for a country that doesn't recognize him as a legal resident. He wrote me a letter, and here's what he said. DACA means everything to me. It gives me the opportunity to work and support myself. It is with great pride that I call myself American, even though my status says otherwise. I recently visited the Phoenix Military Academy, one of the 6 military academies, part of the Chicago public school system. I'm proud to say the Chicago Public School hosts the largest junior ROTC program in America. 10,000 cadets. You ought to see them marching on the Memorial Day parade. Just wave after wave of these uniformed young high school students. And it turns out that many of these cadets are dreamers who want to do just what Kia Min has done, volunteer to enlist in the United States military. How can you question this man's commitment to America if he's willing to die for this country? How many kids in high school would step up with that kind of courage? Well, he's demonstrated, and others have too, that they can give a lot to our country. Without DACA, if it ends March 5th, it's over. For Kia Min and 900 others who have volunteered to serve our nation, they're finished. They can't continue their service to America, even though the skills they bring are necessarily vital to our national interest. And for the thousands of ROTC cadets in Chicago, drilling every day, taking this seriously, it's over for them too. There's no avenue left for them to step forward and serve our nation. Would America be better if we deported Kia Min back to South Korea, a country he may not even remember? Will we be a stronger country if we lose this kind of courage and this kind of commitment of a young man willing to risk his life for a country that does not legally recognize him as part of its population? In a few weeks, we're going to get to go home for the holidays. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. It's a big holiday for my family, and I'm sure it is for many others. But can we really go home and enjoy our families knowing that we haven't answered the most basic question that the President said to us on September 5th? When he said, can Congress act? Can you pass a law? Can you solve a problem? That's what it comes down to when it's DACA and the Dreamers. When I introduced the DREAM Act with Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, he said, and I quote, "The moment of reckoning is coming." He's right. Lindsey's right. It's a moment of reckoning for this young man, but more importantly, it's a moment of reckoning for the Senate as to whether or not we are serious about why we were elected. If we cannot solve this basic problem in a matter of days and weeks, shame on us. We're not overworked, for goodness sakes. We're just not inspired to do it at this point, and we need to be inspired to do it. We shouldn't do to this young man and to the thousands of others who count on us the unacceptable and walk away from our responsibility. Now's the time, before the end of this year, to let this young man know that when he's called to serve our country, and proudly do so, we've done everything we can to clear his path. Mr. President, I yield the floor.